It's time now for Scoop, our weekly conversation on international media and the political and economic headwinds confronting the industry. We look at who shapes the narrative and explore journalistic ethics. With trust in the press at a nadir, it's a critical eye on a critical profession. Well, today we're looking at just some of the media coverage and the media's role and tensions between the United States and Venezuela. It's been about a week since the U.S. launched a secret military raid codenamed Operation Absolute Resolve. Here's Jon Stewart.
Ladies and gentlemen, this weekend, President Trump and an elite team of Delta Force special operators removed a dangerous foreign dictator from power. Not that one. No, not that. He's not okay. No, that's that one. No, I'm talking about the now former president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, who was reverse iced and imported. He was actually imported to a jail in Brooklyn.
Some of the details around the planning also sounded like satire. Both the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal reported that Nicolas Maduro's dancing is what pushed Donald Trump over the edge. A U.S. president allegedly felt like he was being mocked and imitated by the Venezuelan leader. But regardless of the motivation, in the aftermath of the raid, MAGA media celebrated the outcome in glowing terms.
This is a very strong way to support democracy.
Nothing greater than an American president who liberates people.
Liberated them from a strongman who's been holding, by force and intimidation, this country hostage.
We're not about nation building.
The president doesn't want his natural resources. We don't want their oil.
So many of the talking heads were missing or dismissing the president's own words, though, that this was about oil. Democrats even said that U.S. oil executives were briefed about the operation before they were. The Middle East Eye also circulated an old clip of Maduro's predecessor, Hugo Chavez, from 2009, in which he dismissed that he was paranoid over his fears that the U.S. would back a coup to get control of Venezuela's oil. Now, at a time when more and more people are getting their information from content creators, a number of news influencers have accused U.S. media of laying the groundwork for military intervention. Here's a clip from the Public Enlightenment Show.
Well, mainstream media isn't wasting any time manufacturing consent for the United States' illegal invasion of Venezuela. Here we've got a headline from Reuters: Nicolas Maduro's tight grip on Venezuela shaken loose by Trump blitz. Here's CBS framing it as a breath of fresh air. Here's the New York Times in November making the case for overthrowing Maduro, next to a bipolar admission today that it is illegal and unwise. The Wall Street Journal is reporting on Wall Street firms already exploring investment opportunities in Venezuela. For WAPO, an actual power grab by the United States using military force without congressional approval is justice.
Well, let's bring in our guest, Vicente Ulive, a Venezuelan writer. Hello to you, Vicente. First of all, what was your initial reaction when you found out that Maduro was gone? And in the days that followed, has that changed? I mean, a lot of legal experts are saying that the U.S. action in Venezuela was illegal.
Yes, the initial reaction of almost all Venezuelans was a huge sigh of relief in the beginning when we realized that a horrible dictator that has put many of my friends in jail personally is finally out. And that was followed by a huge sense of what is going on and why have you abandoned us when the United States decided to leave. Because anybody with even a cursory passing knowledge of Venezuela knows that the Chavista structure is a structure. It's an institution. And taking out the head honcho, which was Nicolas Maduro, does little or nothing to, as they said in this video, liberate us. We have not been liberated. We still have political prisoners, and we still don't know what's going to happen in our country.
Yeah, and then beyond that, so much attention, at least with what the U.S. government was saying, and so what was repeated by U.S. media, was on oil, a lot less than on the people of Venezuela and the chaos that ensued. What did you notice about media coverage?
It was very strange. I mean, there's a lot of things that are said in the media that aren't quite correct regarding Venezuela and our oil. The oil industry right now is between the hands of foreign actors anyway, so it's not like the oil is Venezuelan. So the conflict cannot be pegged as the United States coming to Venezuela and taking the oil. You may make a case for it being the United States coming to Venezuela and taking the oil from the Chinese. Right now, we produce about 1 million of barrels of petrol per day. About half of that, 500,000, go directly to China. There's oil also that goes to Cuba. So the oil is not in the hands of Venezuelans. The second thing that strikes us as baffling is this idea, which seems to be vehicled by Trump and the international media, that Venezuela has just like oil laying somewhere and you're just going to come and pick it up. That's not how that works. I mean, oil needs a lot of investment. We're talking about billions and billions of dollars that would have to be pumped into the country to take the oil out. So it's very baffling to see the United States think that they can just take our oil. We don't know what that means.
Yeah, and then one other thing we saw, at least alluded to in one of the clips I played earlier, was this idea that some say the U.S. media was actually manufacturing consent for this American attack on Caracas. Did you feel like there was any weight behind that?
Yes, I mean, when we saw that the U.S. had produced the highest mobilization of troops in the Caribbean since when they ousted Noriega, we had concerns that they might actually do some kind of intervention. On the other hand, Venezuela is a very difficult country to control. If what they plan is on having boots on the ground, it's going to be very tough for them. This is a country that has a lot of mountains. We have a lot of guerrilla history. The guerrilla was eradicated in the 70s in Venezuela, except for some guerrilleros like Celia Flores, our actual president, who didn't depose her arms in the 60s. That's how radical she was. So controlling Venezuela from a military perspective is a very, very difficult task. And we don't know what they pretend to do. And also, we don't know how they pretend to govern by proxy from the United States. This very thing is still a lot murky right now.
Yeah. Another question that is murky is, as you mentioned before, the political prisoners. Security forces detained over a dozen journalists working for foreign news organizations. At this crucial moment for the world to understand what's happening in Venezuela and the consequences of the U.S. intervention, Reporters Without Borders said that after years of repression under Maduro, conditions have deteriorated even further following the U.S. military action. And then what came out in the past few hours was that Caracas has released a number of political prisoners, activists, and journalists. Is that enough to allay your concerns?
No, absolutely not. For us as Venezuelans, we will consider that we are in a period of transition, or that we are, as they say, liberated, when there is no more political prisoners in the country, when the people that are outside of Venezuela who want to come back in can, because right now they can't, and when we get taken our institutions back, at least the judicial system and the electoral system, so we can organize elections. The prisoners that have been liberated is a step in the right direction. But historically, people who know Chavismo know that they are very good at negotiating, and this has happened in the past before with other negotiating tables we had that were mediated by the United States. The Chavistas liberate the prisoners and then they put them back in jail 2 months later. So it's still too early to say if this is a real transition that we are doing, or if we're just seeing that some people are being freed from jail. Also, the way that the structure happens in Venezuela is that you have different clans that hold power. Certain of these clans control judges, prisons, and the police. So what is most likely being happening right now is that the system that was the clan that was attached to Maduro is no longer in place. So those political prisoners can be freed. But the political prisoners that go to Diosdado Cabello, for example, who runs the Helicoide, I'm not that sure that he's going to let them free.
Yeah, how complex that system is. Do you think Washington appreciates that when Donald Trump says that the U.S. will be running Venezuela for likely years?
That is one of the dumbest things that you can say on international politics, even if it's true. Because now here's the thing. The operation that we saw was a huge humiliation for Venezuela. Any country, doesn't matter if you like or you don't like the person in power, in this case, Nicolas Maduro, seeing somebody, a foreign actor, come into your country, invade your country, kidnap a person that high up and take him away is a terrible precedent that is going to entrench the left in Venezuela in a very violent way. And all of the inroads we may have been able to make, saying that the United States are on our side, the United States are democratic, they're actually helping us, and it's not that bad that Maria Corina Machado actually talks to them. All those inroads have been destroyed. And right now, I will not be surprised if the Venezuelan movement radicalizes to an utmost degree.
And do you think you'd see a similar thing take place throughout the region?
Probably. I mean, I come from a very left-wing family. I'm still left-wing. I grew up in the tradition of Latin American politics, and we were steeped in stories about how the United States had launched coups against Arbenz and against Allende, for example, and how Victor Jara was playing the guitar when he had no hands because he was being tortured by Pinochet, and all this eschatology that isn't part of the intelligentsia of the Latin American left. Of course, then you learn that's different, and that's a different story. But this image is so telling and so strong that I would be surprised if it doesn't get imbued in the psyche of Latin America as a huge and egregious attack by the United States on another nation of Latin America. And the only thing that can save this, if things turn out exactly how they should be, that is elections, freedom for all political prisoners in let's say 2 years, then maybe we could say, oh, the United States did a good thing for us. But up till now, it's a tragedy what they have done, and they have actually fractured the Latin American psyche.
I'm also wondering what you've noticed in media coverage here in Europe. I saw some Spanish papers. Opinion pieces, though, vilifying Venezuelans themselves, not Maduro, not the dictatorship, but the refugees leaving the country. Is that something you've noticed, whether it was in the media or just from people on the street?
Yes, we have seen that it's a minority, and it's a very boneheaded kind of approach to say that, if you're against Maduro, then you're for the United States. But yes, we have been victims of all kinds of characterizations. There was a piece that was run in a Spanish newspaper calling us gusanos. Gusanos is worms. And worms was a term that Fidel Castro used when the Cubans left his island. He would play this in the airport, like, ¿A dónde van los gusanos? Where are the worms going to? And that's how the whole Cubans in Miami are called gusanos or worms. Now they're calling us worms because people have spent tons of time outside of their country, and they just want to see their friends free. And they are, if you don't know Nicolas Maduro, you may think that he's a nice guy or whatever because he's like dancing and cracking jokes. This guy's a despicable dictator that has tortured many, many people. This is something that is known, and we should have no kind of sympathy for this person.
Vicente, thank you so much for your time. Vicente Ulive, a Venezuelan writer and author. Thank you so much. And that brings us to our quote of the week, and it's a New Yorker cartoon by Ivan Eller showing an old man teaching his grandson the ways of the world. Quote, "In my day, we had to use the CIA to secretly finance military coups if we wanted to steal a country's resources." That's it for this edition of Scoop. Thank you for watching, and please stay tuned to France 24.